Sis, you should move out. We've decided to live in this house. What? Of course. It's just too much for us newlyweds to have both in-laws and the little sister-in-law in the same house, isn't it? This is not your house. If you don't like it, rent an apartment or whatever. You can live here if you want, but kicking Sophie out is absurd. I felt saved by my mother's words, but my brother and his wife remained sullen. This happened 5 years ago. It was when my younger brother, fresh out of university, brought his girlfriend home and told us he wanted to marry her. My name is Sophie. I am now 33 years old. My brother, 5 years my junior, got married when he graduated from university. Moreover, his wife was still a university student and 3 years his junior. My brother and his wife were insistent on getting married immediately, but our parents advised them to wait until after his wife graduated. On the other hand, her parents didn't oppose at all. Apparently, she was a free-spirited big spender, and her parents just wished she would move out as soon as possible. And on the wedding day, we will cover her university expenses, but after today, she will be your family. So please understand that anything other than her tuition is not our concern. They said it was a nonchalant face. Thinking it was a waste to pay rent, the newlyweds decided to live with their parents. Thanks to my father, who was originally a wealthy man, our home was old but quite spacious. There was still enough room, so it was not much of a problem for the couple to live together. My father, with his privileged upbringing, had never experienced financial hardships, thanks to the family fortune, but he was just an ordinary salaryman. Such a father rarely expressed his opinions. Always smiling and somewhat disconnected from reality, he often received advice from my mother, but I had never seen him angry. "Oh, I have been scolded by your mom again," he often said in such a way. My father was a laid-back person no matter what was said to him, but I think that's why he and my mother were a good match. I love my father who would laugh while being scolded by my mother. This is how our cohabitation with the newlyweds started. My sister-in-law does absolutely nothing around the house. She doesn't even vacuum, and her laundry is left mixed with ours. She doesn't cook either. She just waits for my mother or me to prepare the meals. You could help out a little, you know? Having had enough, I said this, only to be accused of bullying her. "You're scary, sis. Maybe that's why you can't get married even though you're so old," she said giggling. My brother who just laughs along with her. "At least wash your own laundry. Aren't you embarrassed to have other people wash your underwear? That's harsh, sis. I thought we were all family." Like this, she would pretend to cry for sympathy. My brother would side with her in times like these. "Sophie, just because Emily is young and cute, don't be jealous and bully her. I just want to say that we're not your mates. If we live together, we have to follow certain rules. Emily is a student and her main job is to study, so it can't be helped. We're a family, so we can cooperate that much, right?" He said this without showing any sign of regret, even though my mother has suggested many times that they should live in an apartment, then pay the rent for us. He would say things like that. "If we live, it's a luxury apartment. We can't live in a cheap apartment." Such a selfish statement. Although I asked my father to say something, it's hard for just the two of them to live. They're still young. He would only say things like this. And as a result, my brother and his wife became even more audacious. About 2 years later, when I turned 30, I was luckily engaged to be married. My future husband was someone from one of our company's clients. We became close as we met several times for business meetings, and he was very thoughtful and kind. So when he asked me to date him and then to marry him, I was very happy. Finally getting married. Huh? It's unusual to find someone who would take a woman like you. You better try your best not to get dumped. I'm glad you managed to get sold. I'm so excited to think that the meddling sister-in-law will be gone. My parents, on the other hand, left my husband and blessed our marriage from the bottom of their hearts. I occasionally visited my parents' house, but my brother and his wife were still the same. My sister-in-law graduated from university the next year, but she neither worked nor did housework. When I tried to caution her, I was told that I was a stranger now, that I had left and should not interfere. But I knew probably they were not leaving because they wanted the family assets. So deep down, they were probably happy that they didn't have to give the assets to me who had married and left. However, it does not mean that I have lost my inheritance rights. My brother and his wife probably know this, But now that I've left, they must think they can say anything when the time comes. As for me, I'd be glad to give up my inheritance if my brother and his wife will take good care of my parents and protect the house. But at this stage, I don't see any sign of that happening. About 2 years later, my father's health declined and he was in and out of the hospital. I helped with his care and visited him in the hospital as much as time permitted, but my brother and his wife seemed indifferent. My father started to I have an inheritance of $20 million. Say things like this. And sure enough, every time I went to my parents' house, I started to see my sister-in-law at my father's side, purring sweetly. Listen, sis, I want to take care of dad too, but mom does everything and I don't get a chance. But you didn't want to take care of dad before, did you? That's not true. But don't you think mom might be trying to keep us away from dad to monopolize the inheritance? My parents are really close and I think mom wants to take care of dad herself, so I don't think she's thinking that way. Is that so? Then when dad passes away, we'll get a fair share of the inheritance, right? Stop it. Don't say such bad luck things. My father is still alive. I'm really upset with my brother and his wife, who only care about money. However, it's unclear whether my father really has that much assets. While our family used to be wealthy, my father is just an ordinary salaryman. I can't imagine that he has that much leeway. And a year later, my father passed away. I rushed to the hospital when I heard his condition had suddenly worsened, but by the time I got there, my father was already cold. The only consolation was that my father's face was very peaceful. I'm sure he was smiling, being cared for by my mother until the end. Dad, you're smiling, aren't you? Really? He was carefree till the very end. My husband left work early to come, but my brother and his wife did not show up at the hospital. I contacted my brother. If he's already dead, what's the point of us going? He said this calmly. My brother and his wife didn't seem to mourn at the funeral and seemed to be laughing. After the funeral, my brother immediately brought up the subject of inheritance. We, as a couple, would inherit the $20 million inheritance from dad. What? What are you talking about? So, both you and mom gave up your inheritance. Can't we talk about this after the 49th day memorial service? The funeral just ended today. Usually, it's better to settle money matters quickly. We, as a couple, live in this house, and I am the eldest son of the house, so the right to inherit is ours. To bring up something like this as soon as my father passed away, I didn't particularly want the money, but it made me angry with my brother, so I couldn't agree with him. In return, we will take care of mom, so don't worry. Who could believe such words? My mother opened her mouth before I could object. It's okay. Mom, why? Arguing over something like this would make your father sad. So let's stop. But my father had just passed away, and I guess my mother was quite depressed, but I couldn't agree with it. It's not something we can conclude right now. Let's just go home for today. My husband, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, said this. My husband had refrained from saying anything until now, but he couldn't bear it anymore. In this way, we left the scene. It's not right, especially since dad just passed away. I understand how you feel, but what I'm worried about now is your mother. She's usually a strong person, but she's so depressed. You're right. I'm very worried about her, too. Why did my mother agree to my brother's opinion so easily? Was she persuaded by my brother and his wife? My father and mother were a very good couple. As for my mother, the shock of losing my father must have been great. Honestly, right now, I'd rather be immersed in memories with my father than be angry, but I was so angry with my brother that I couldn't help it. Since then, my brother and his wife had brought up the issue of renouncing the inheritance several times, but I kept refusing to discuss it until the 49th day. Then the 49th day ended. My brother and his wife immediately started talking about renouncing the inheritance. But again, my mother told me to renounce the inheritance. Sophie, if mom said it's okay, then it's okay, right? Is it okay? Are you sure you won't regret it? After all, Emily is dad's daughter, so don't worry. Well, yes, she is your wife after all. That's not what I meant. I meant that she has the right to inherit the estate. After all, Emily has already been adopted by our parents. What? This was the first I'd heard of it. When I looked at my mother in surprise, she nodded silently. Adoption by one's in-laws isn't exactly unheard of, is it? It's not unheard of, but it doesn't seem to be a common thing for a bride to be adopted, not a son-in-law. If Emily becomes an heir, we'll pay less inheritance tax than if I were the sole heir. To think he'd thought about it that far. I was flabbergasted, wondering when he'd started planning this. What's more, even my mother agreed. Moreover, I never expected them to ask me to renounce the inheritance. Perhaps it's a result of worrying about the future as a mother since my father is gone. But if it's my mother's decision, I guess I can't help it. So I decided to sign the inheritance renunciation document. I don't want to argue about money anymore. Fortunately, my husband is not one to fuss over money, and he'll leave the decision regarding inheritance to me. If my mother can live peacefully from now on, I thought it would be the best to renounce it. I got a call from my sister-in-law about a month later. It seems like your mom has gone senile. What? Well, she's not doing any cleaning or laundry, so the house is a complete mess. My mother, who is originally meticulous and likes cleanliness. It's hard to imagine such a mother being able to leave laundry piled up and not clean, and she's just had her meal, but she's shouting at me. I'm hungry. Are you trying to starve me? And demanding that I cook for her. It's like she's become a total monster. Is it true? Have you taken her to the hospital? It's impossible. She gets violent when I try to take her out, and it's embarrassing to walk around with a senile old woman. Sam says I should just leave her be, but I'm the one who's home all day, and I'm at my wit's end. To be honest, I'm fed up. So I decided to stop by my parents' house on my way home from work, and I was at loss for words at the sight of my mother, which I was seeing for the first time. My mother in dirty pajamas and disheveled hair was sitting on her bed with lifeless eyes. Could she change so much in just a month? No matter how you look at it, she's not in her right mind. Mom, you recognize me, right? What on earth has happened to you? You, who might you be? My mother said that, tilting her head. No way, this must be a lie. See, no matter how you look at it, she's gone senile, right? What's going on? The room isn't clean at all. Why did you let it get this bad? Well, I don't know about that. But you guys said you'd take care of Mom, right? Looking after a senile old woman isn't part of the deal. There's no contract when it comes to taking care of parents. What are you talking about? Then, dear sister-in-law, you should take care of her. I was planning to do that without being told. Let's go home, Mom. I said that and tried to take my mother, but for some reason she adamantly refused. She wouldn't move at all, and she shook off my hand. Even if I tried to pull her forcefully, she clung to the bed and wouldn't let go. What happened to you, Mom? I had no choice but to retreat that day. And although I came to pick her up with my husband the next day, she still stubbornly refused to move. And finally, I want to be with your father, she said, crying. I couldn't believe that my mother had become like this. I have a job, so I can't come to see her every day. That's why I want her to come to my house. But she adamantly refused to leave her old home. I received a call from my younger brother sometime later. Sis, we moved. Really? Where to? Of course you took Mom with you, right? There's no way I'd bring along a senile old woman. She's just baggage. Sam, what are you saying? Mom said Dad's valuable securities are in the safe deposit box. So if we sell the house, we get about $20 million. What? So I'd be in trouble if Mom stays in that house forever. So sis, take Mom out as soon as possible. I'm counting on you. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? So that's the situation. Please take care of mother-in-law. As soon as my sister-in-law, who had replaced my brother, said that, the phone was unilaterally cut off. After that, no matter how many times I redialed, they wouldn't answer the phone. I left work early and hurriedly went to my parents' house to tell my mother to come to our house. I thought she would resist as usual, but this time she silently nodded in agreement, which relieved me. Did my mother understand that no one was in this house anymore? Even while we were driving home, my mother was quiet and didn't say a word. But when we got home, my mother suddenly perked up. Huh, can I use your bathroom? She said that, and hurriedly went into the bathroom. I didn't understand what was happening and just stood there. The mother I just saw was my mother from before, no doubt about it. What on earth is happening? I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. When my mother got out of the bath, she asked me to get her some clothes. I quickly handed her some of my own clothes and some new underwear I had bought for her. Ah, I feel so refreshed. She said that with a bright smile, wiping her hair with a bath towel. Mom, what's going on? As I asked that, my husband came home and like me, he looked shocked when he saw my mother. Seeing us, my mother suddenly burst into laughter. It was a convincing performance, wasn't it? I was in the drama club in high school. The saying, to deceive the enemy, you must first deceive your allies, is true, isn't it? So my mother was pretending to be senile? But why? I didn't understand anything. Just you wait, the couple will divorce soon. By that couple, do you mean Sam and his wife? Of course. After all, that couple is only together because of money. Then my mother started to explain what had happened so far. Both my husband and I were astonished at my mother's strategizing. The very angry call from my brother came the following week. Hey sis, you knew about this and didn't say anything, didn't you? What's the meaning of this? What are you talking about all of a sudden? There's no inheritance from dad at all. But wasn't there $20 million? When I checked the safety deposit box, Mom mentioned there were only loan agreements inside. So there was $20 million, right? You've got a debt of $20 million. What? Didn't you check the amount? It's so like you, the only boy in our family to take on all of Dad's debts. Well, debts are part of the inheritance too. In the past, our father, being too good-natured, had become the guarantor for a company that a friend was starting. Of course, he kept this a secret from our mother. However, the company didn't get off the ground, and the friend kept borrowing more and more money from my father. Eventually, the company went bankrupt, leaving only the debt behind. To top it all off, the friend disappeared without a trace. It seems that due to the debt incurred at that time, our family home had long been put up as collateral. This may also have been a factor in our father developing dementia. It was then that our mother learned about this debt. My dad. There's an inheritance of $20 million. It seems that's when our father started seeing this. My younger brother, misunderstanding that there was $20 million in cash, decided to adopt their parents, along with his wife, in order to get as much money as possible. My dad, without any suspicion, agreed to my brother's proposal, but my mother understood my brother's scheme, so she purposely didn't object. He wanted the inheritance so badly that she would give it to him as it was. To hide our dad's dementia, our mom intentionally kept my brother and his wife away from our dad. And after our dad's death, when my brother and his wife finally revealed their true colors, my mom feigned sanity to see their reaction, and so she waited for the right time. Then I'll renounce the inheritance too. It's too late for that. Didn't you know that you can only renounce an inheritance within 3 months after learning that it has been initiated? What? We're way past that period, aren't we? So now you two are going to have to start paying off the debt together. My mother had been waiting for this moment to come. She kept pretending to be senile until the period during which the inheritance could be renounced was over. My brother's intention in living with their mom was just to extract information about our dad's inheritance from her. When the time came, she told them about the safety deposit box as if she suddenly remembered it. With the information they wanted, my brother and his wife immediately left the house. They had been dancing on the palm of my mother's hands all along. Emily is saying she wants a divorce if she's not getting any money. But Emily is legally our father's child, so she can't escape the debt even if she gets divorced, right? I see, but I thought I could live a life of leisure with $20 million, so I even quit my job. I don't have that kind of money. Oh dear. You really did it this time, didn't you? So of course you're going to help me out, right? Why should I help you? You're the one who forced Mom and me to renounce the inheritance, so I shouldn't have anything to do with it anymore. Well, thanks to you, I'm saved. I'm sure Dad is crying with joy that he has such a dutiful son. Good luck paying back the debt. The family home was seized as it had been mortgaged. Though the land and house were worth nearly $720,000, it wasn't nearly enough to cover the debt, so my brother and his wife were struggling to make repayments while living their lives. As my mom predicted, the brother and his wife were always fighting over money. Divorced. My mom accepted the request of sister-in-law to dissolve the adoption, and Emily truly became a stranger to us. She probably thought this would free her from the debt, but the world isn't so forgiving. The right to inherit it at the time of her dad's death continues as it was. So even if the adoption is dissolved, the former sister-in-law still has a debt. This is terrible. You tricked me. The sister-in-law came in shouting with tremendous force, but we didn't mean to deceive her. My mom was devastated by the sight of my brother and his wife who were happy calculating the money without mourning her father's death. That's why she didn't say anything. It's just that the two of them who thought there was an inheritance were just getting carried away on their own. They certainly provided a textbook example of what happens when greed takes hold. After that, my brother kept contacting us and coming to our house to ask for money, so we decided to move without telling him. Unbeknownst to me, my dad had taken out a large life insurance policy with my mother and me as the beneficiaries. Despite his death, it seems he made sure to pay his life insurance premiums. The fact that my brother was not included as a beneficiary made me wonder if my dad knew everything that was going on. He might have seemed thoughtless, but perhaps a real strategist in our family was not my mom but my dad. My father had muttered, "There is an inheritance of $20 million. Perhaps that was intentional. Although I think so, there is no way to confirm that now. My husband and I used my dad's insurance money as a down payment on a house. As for my brother and my former sister-in-law, they seem to be working somewhere while being hounded by loan sharks, but it's none of my business. Even after we moved, my brother kept contacting us asking where we were, so I mentioned the insurance money. You guys renounced the inheritance, so that money should be mine." He yelled, but inheritance renouncement and life insurance are two different things. Unlike inheritance, life insurance money goes to the person named as the beneficiary. I conveyed this fact to him, and at the same time, I blocked the contact details of my brother and my former sister-in-law. Now we are living a peaceful life as a family of three. My mom,